start in a few minutes. I'm going to gently ask for everyone take your seat. Again, good morning to you all. It's a great pleasure to have you all here. You have me talking to you just at this beginning. So in the name of the Ministry of Science and Technology in Brazil, we must very welcome everyone that come here from across the Atlantic, many other countries, to be these 2 busy days here in Salvador, this warm city. I hope that you all have a safe trip here and we have a wonderful forum during these 2 days. So, to guide us through the day, the openings in today's sessions, it's my pleasure to introduce to our Master of Ceremony, Paulo Henrique Reis de Oliveira, that is the coordinator of the Center for Studies in the Law of the Sea at the University of São Paulo. He was a Nippon Fellow at the International Tribune for the Law of the Sea and is currently a PhD candidate in International and Comparative Law at the University of São Paulo. Paulo, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Salvador, Bahia, a vibrant city where science meets culture. And most important, welcome to the 2026 AAORIA Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance Forum. It's a pleasure to host you during this event. This forum is the Alliance flagship gathering, bringing together the Atlantic community and building on the progress of the previous editions. This event brings together a truly diverse group of experts, diverse in their backgrounds, in their scientific expertise, and in their social realities, reflecting the richness of the Atlantic. Together, we advance ocean science through international cooperation and collaborative action. The Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance is a powerful example of ocean science diplomacy, connecting countries from both sides of the Atlantic to support science-based policy, governance, and ocean management. We are united by a shared goal to ensure the conservation and sustainable use of the Atlantic Ocean, in line with the Our Atlantic Declaration. We warmly thank the Brazilian Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation and SENAI CIMATEC for hosting this event, with the support of partners and initiatives that make this gathering possible. It's also important recognizing the amazing photos on our panels. Those pictures are part of the incredible work of Thiago Sampaio and also are part of the photo competition that can be checked outside of this auditorium. Let us make those days inspiring, collaborative, and impactful. Thank you and be welcome. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our welcome and opening session. We are honored to welcome Professor Andrea Lattes. She is a Secretary of Strategic Policies and Programs at the Brazilian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, a physics professor and a researcher at the Universidade Federal Fluminense. She is a full member of the Brazilian Academy of Science and serves on the Council of the Brazilian Physical Society, internationally recognized. It's also my pleasure to welcome Josiane Barbosa, Superintendent of Education and Science and member of the Board of Directors at SENAI CIMATEC. We also welcome Dalila Andrade Oliveira, Director of Institutional International Cooperation and Innovation at CNPq Brazil. And also James Morrison, Director for Health Planet at the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation. Erik Anekstad, Director General at the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, Department of Research and Innovation, Norway. Iran Patel from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation of South Africa. And Anjali Goswami, Scientific Advisor at the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, United Kingdom. Please feel free to be seated, and Professor Andrea Lage, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, all the people together here. Thank you very much for all of you for coming here today. I believe that you have here in a very special time to discuss the present and the future, and forget for a while the unbelievable world you are living with so many wars. I believe that you need to forget that and to think about future today. And so, dear colleagues of all Atlantic community, I'm really very happy to be here today with all of you. And even more happy because you are in my country, Brazil. It is with satisfaction that I welcome you all to the beautiful city of Salvador and to Brazil for this edition of AAORIA Forum. Throughout the organization of the forum, I have followed with great enthusiasm the mobilization of every team present here today, aiming to contribute to the debates and to leave a legacy to our community and to the world. This is the first ever edition of the AAORIA Forum to occur in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's not an irrelevant fact. It symbolizes the importance given to the ocean in this country, and most importantly, it is a clear statement of the capacity of the scientific community in our country of mobilizing evidence-based policy decisions aimed at the conservation and the sustainable use of the ocean. As you may be aware of, Brazil will host the 3rd Ocean Decade Conference 2027 in the city of Rio de Janeiro. That is also a very beautiful city that you must visit. The preparation for the conference involves not only a close relation with EOC UNESCO, but it provides the ideal environment for mobilizing the government, the academy, the private sector, and the civil society in scrutinizing the achievements reached since the inset of the UN Ocean Decade back in 2021. The collective assessment of our trajectory allow us to revise decisions taken and their outcomes, but more important, it allows us to correct our course of action and propose a way forward until the end of the UN Ocean Decade in 2030. This collective action will also allow us to foresee what we expect for the period after the decade is over. I believe that the future is just now, and you have to think deeply about that. As preconized through the vision of UN Ocean Decade, science should be the driving force behind every decision. There is no way we will understand the mechanism behind the ocean functioning and the impact of human action without the proper science and technology. On the other hand, it is important to mention that Brazil cannot do it in an isolated fashion, and this is why we are gathered here today. The ocean is a single ocean. Although our scope of action as the AAORIA community is centering around the Atlantic Ocean, our shared responsibility and collaboration have the potential to impact the ocean more broadly. The promotion of sustainable development in our region and the sharing of knowledge, research, infrastructure, and capacity could amplify the outcomes of our collective effort. We can go faster and for sure better than not acting alone. Together, we can do and achieve more and serve as an example to other parts of the world facing similar challenges in managing this immense ocean. Our set of priorities and course of action could function as a role model for the rest of the world. Over the last few days, since the middle of last week, we have had a series of side events in which our community has been exchanging views and ideas and proposing new arrangements and how this alliance can better interact to achieve its goal. And this is very important to point that there are a lot of young people that we need them to be in this challenge. On the following 2 days of this forum, sections will cover from ocean literacy to the preservation of coastal areas, from sustainable blue economy to the observation of the ocean, passing through the linkage of all the Atlantic Ocean to the polar seas and coastal resilience. This broad list of agenda topics is a sign of engagement of our community to the wide range of issues we must deal with, but it rather denotes the grade of engagement and commitment of this region to the promotion of the highest level of science to the benefit of humankind. Therefore, with this spirit of collaboration in mind, I wish to reiterate my immense satisfaction in welcoming you to the AAORIA Forum in Salvador, Bahia, and take this opportunity to wish you all a lot of energy and success in the duration of our work along these 2 precious days. I believe that you have a message to give now, that you need to make ocean science together and not war throughout the ocean. Have a good time here.
Thank you, Professor Flagship, for those words that undoubtedly will guide our work during those 2 days. And now I invite Josiane Barbosa, Superintendent of Education and Science of SENAI CIMATEC, to give her welcoming speech.
So, good morning, everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to receive everybody here in our home for this special event connecting the ocean and connected different institutions in this area. For us, it's a pleasure. We consider SENAI CIMATEC as a young institution. We have only 24 years, but today SENAI CIMATEC have been work very connected with the Brazilian industry to promote technology innovation. And sometimes I say from my colleagues from the academy, SENAI CIMATEC stay in the middle of the line. We have the basic science and we have the industry, and we put the CIMATEC in middle. And for us, it's an excellent opportunity to connect with new people in this area, especially and connected with the ocean and the solutions applying for ocean. We have been working close the technologies to applying the underwater robotics. I think this will have 2 opportunity to know better. And later, with my colleague, we'll talk about a little bit more. But for us, it's a pleasure again receive everyone here and open the door for our home to receive and enjoy this time here in Salvador, especially because it's a good place, it's a good food, it's a good culture. And I hope that you have 2 deep days to promote this. Is get together the academy, because the science event is an excellent opportunity to promote new collaborations. And I would say that we are very open as the institutions to connect it with your institutions, because we have a lot of projects in the pipeline now. We have complex projects to increase the competitive of the Brazilian industry. And this is the main goals and the main focus of SENAI CIMATEC. And thank you again, and enjoy this time and enjoy your home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josiane, for making SENAI CIMATEC a safe port for those discussions. And now I invited you all to watch the institutional presentation of SENAI CIMATEC.
We are driven by challenges. For us, the challenge is not an obstacle. It's a starting point. It is from here that concrete solutions are born, shaped by the real needs of industry, society, and the planet. From increasing 4 million square meters dedicated to the development of pilot plants, industrial tests, and emerging technologies. A space where companies, startups, and educational and research institutions accelerate market solutions. We also bring technology to the Brazilian semi-arid region with SENAI CIMATEC. We are breaking new ground in the blue economy with SENAI CIMATEC Ocean. Present in the port of Salvador with an underwater testing park, we operate with underwater exploration technologies, naval engineering, port logistics, defense, and security. This is how we value the future without giving up our history. We also value creativity, inclusion, and social impact with SENAI CIMATEC Digital and Creative. It is in the heart of the historical center of Salvador that we train talents and boost businesses. And we continue to advance with SENAI CIMATEC Aerospace. At the Salvador, partner companies and institutions in a collaborative, open innovation ecosystem focused on high-impact deliverables. SENAI CIMATEC. Education, science, technology, innovation, and business for industry and society.
To her welcoming speech.
Promotion of science in Brazil, advancing research across all fields of knowledge and supporting the training of qualified human resource. We participate in several multilateral cooperation, like a biodiverse joint transnational call and Water for All, and European Research Council, which the goal is to support up to 20 research projects involving the participation of Brazilian research in scientific collaborations with previous Anchor project and the Belém Statement of Atlantic Research Collaboration. OKEANO expands the scope of cooperation from the South Atlantic to the North Atlantic, within the framework of the Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance, AAORIA. The project promotes initiative, science-based solutions for the sustainability management of the Atlantic Ocean from pole to pole, involving researchers, funding agents, and stakeholders with support from CNPq. With OKEANO, the CNPq takes on a strategic mission of building national capacity of strengthening technical expertise in ocean science. A key action has been the promotion of training programs of early career ocean professionals, carried out in partnership with the National Institute for Ocean Research, our INPO. So far, 2 international summer schools have been supported by CNPq. These initiatives reinforce interdisciplinarity and prepare a new generation of profession to address the challenges of ocean sustainability. By encouraging international collaboration and co-creation, CNPq highlights the need to integrate not only the natural science, but also the social science and the humanities into effective conservation policies and practices. And two, we organize a summer course within the scope of the project OKEANO in partnership with IMPO and the other partners on the following themes. In 2024, Ocean and Climate Computational Modeling. 2025, Numerical Modeling and the Data Analysis Fundamentals. And now, in 2026, Autonomous Robotics and Artificial Intelligence. I think the students are among us. From 9 different countries. So it's a great activity, a successful. And finally, I would to thank Delaney and team for a great work they did for that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dalila. It's really important to listen how the different initiatives help us to navigate the challenges that are posed to us. But before I continue, I want to invite Mr. Agustin Alberto Nunez to join us. And now I invite James Morrison, Director for Health Planet at the European Community, DG Research and Innovation, to give his opening speech.
Thanks. I know what you're thinking, another opening speech, but at least I'm not the last one, so there we go. I'd like to thank, obviously, our Brazilian host, the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, and SENAI CIMATEC and the organization team. Not least because last year, the EU was the AAORIA chair, and we had to organize the forum. And so all I can say is, I'm glad it's you and not us anymore, and you're making a great job of it. The shared priorities that are set out in the All-Atlantic Declaration remain very much as important as they were when it was signed back in 2022 in Washington, D.C. So I'm just going to briefly talk about a couple of examples. The first one, ocean observation and modeling, and then secondly, the link to polar seas. And those two things are increasingly being prioritized by EU priority. So in relation to the first, the ocean observation, I'd like to thank our US colleague, Steve, for continuing to lead AAORIA in that area of action, and indeed for continuing to be engaged in this voluntary partnership, which is so important. The importance of international cooperation on this topic was highlighted by the Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, back at the UN Ocean Conference last year, but also more recently in Brussels when she launched the EU's Ocean Eye initiative. Now this idea is not a revolutionary one. It's basically to support the international effort and to build an international alliance whereby everybody who contributes to it in a national capacity in terms of sort of observation and data gets more out of it collectively because there's more data that's available in an open way. But I think we all realize here that we need to step up our efforts and we need to share the burden between ourselves on this crucial issue. And of course, the ocean, we probably know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the ocean at the moment. So not only the exploration data, but the monitoring data is so important. AAORIA is a great example of that. and it shows how beneficial it is when we collaborate on the science needed on these issues that we all face. On the second issue that I wanted to talk about, which is polar science, I was quite struck back at the forum last year in Brussels that one of the early career ocean professionals, and of course I count myself as a late career ocean professional, said, well, you know, the thing about this is what happens at the poles doesn't stay at the poles. And I think, yeah, that's right. And the EU, for our part, we're working on a new Arctic strategy where scientific research will be at the absolute core of that. And I'm looking forward to hearing later this morning about Brazil's scientific endeavors in Antarctica. And we can learn from that experience. Yesterday, of course, I had the pleasure of opening the workshop on coastal resilience, which is something close to my heart. And I thank OKEANO for organizing it and for all the work of the All Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites. And it's great to see the progress that's been achieved on that in a relatively short space of time. The important thing there is, of course, producing the science that's needed to ensure that coastal communities around the Atlantic can be resilient to the challenges that we all face. And those challenges, as we discussed yesterday, they're very real and they're accelerating in their intensity and frequency. So in that context, I'm happy to announce that the Horizon Europe budget, the EU's science budget, has a project on coastal resilience in the Atlantic that will start this summer. It'll be a €6 million project on innovative solutions for resilient and climate-adapted coastal communities. And the grant agreement on that should be formally signed in the next month or so. So we'll be able to share more details with you all at that point. So watch this space on that. I'm also looking forward in the next couple of days to especially hearing from the ECOPs. And I was pleased to see that the Blue Intergenerational Programme is so active, continues to be so active. Then finally, I just wanted to put in a plug, really. In the second half of this year, the 6-month rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union will fall to Ireland. And that is, of course, one of the EU's Atlantic countries with a great track record on this. We think about the Galway Declaration. And so Ireland, I know, plans to host an ocean science event in October that will be highly relevant for the work of AAORIA, an Atlantic summit to be held in Galway on the west coast of Ireland, which is perhaps as beautiful as Salvador. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, I've spoken for more time than I anticipated. So thank you, and I wish you very well in the next couple of days.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for highlighting the work carried out last year that allowed us to go further in this edition and achieving the Alliance objectives. And now I invite Mr. Erik Anekstad, Director General at the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, Department of Research and Innovation, Norway.
Thank you. Dear all distinguished guests, dear friends, it's a privilege to join you here in Brazil, a nation playing an increasingly vital role in our global ocean governance. And on behalf of Norway, I extend our sincere gratitude to our Brazilian hosts and to all partners in the All-Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance. Your dedication to understanding and safeguarding our shared ocean inspires us all. The Atlantic Ocean links us physically, culturally, and scientifically. It carries our trade, regulates our climate, sustains livelihoods across the basin. Yet it is under growing pressure, from warming waters and biodiversity loss to pollution and unsustainable exploitation. In this moment, one truth stands out. The future health of the Atlantic depends on the knowledge we create together. Science is the foundation of sound policy, sustainable economies, and international cooperation. Norway is committed to strengthening Atlantic ocean science through national research programs, partnerships across AAORIA, full participation in Horizon Europe, and the work of UNESCO, IOC, and the engagement in organizations such as ICES. We deeply believe in shared data, shared learning, shared responsibility. We warmly welcome Brazil's growing leadership in promoting the ocean agenda, from maritime innovation and blue economy to its role in advancing the UN Decade of Ocean Science. For Norway and Brazil, the commercial and cultural collaboration dates back to 1842, when the ship Northern Star arrived in Brazil with bacalhau, returned to Norway with coffee. Norway values our bilateral cooperation on green maritime solutions, clean fuels, and the development of transatlantic green shipping corridors. We also appreciate our expanding collaboration in fisheries and aquaculture, essential for feeding a growing world sustainably. Over the next days, we'll focus on areas shaping our common ocean future. Let me highlight 3. First, ocean observation and modeling. Understanding the ocean begins with observing it. Better ocean data improves climate prediction, resource management, and maritime safety. Norway continues to invest in advanced observation technologies and contributes to the Argo network through NorArgo. We welcome the leadership shown by NOAA in advancing ocean observation and modeling within AAORIA and by the European Union through the OceanEye initiative. Together, we're building the knowledge system that the Atlantic needs. Secondly, food from the ocean. Sustainable aquatic food will be indispensable for global food security, and Norway is proud to chair a session on how science, policy, and society can support responsible aquaculture and fisheries. A resilient blue food system can deliver nutrition, livelihoods, and climate-friendly protein if managed wisely. And third, polar Atlantic connections. The Atlantic is an interpolar ocean. Changes in the Arctic and Antarctic shape currents, climate, and ecosystem across the basin. Norway's long polar research tradition will continue to support AAORIA's work on these critical connections. The triple planetary crisis can feel overwhelming, but gatherings like this AAORIA Forum remind us that cooperation is stronger than despair. When nations choose partnership over isolation, science over uncertainty, and long-term stewardship over short-term gain, we build hope. Norway remains committed to this shared mission. I look forward to 2 inspiring days of exchange, collaboration, and action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nekstad, for sharing the commitments of Norway. And now I invite Iman Patel from the Department of Science, Technology, and Innovation of South Africa.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow panelists. It's a great honor to provide some brief remarks at this opening session of the 2026 edition of the All-Atlantic Research and Innovation Annual Forum. Thanks to Brazil for choosing such a wonderful city, part of the country, to host this forum. But equally important, this very impressive facility that we're having this engagement in. I had the opportunity of doing a short walkthrough yesterday, and the capabilities are significant, and also had the pleasure of being at dinner with two senior colleagues from SENAI CIMATEC, who provided a very good assessment. I want to just make some remarks wearing two hats. Firstly, as the South African member of the High-Level Advisory Board, just reflecting on AAORIA as a partnership. And secondly, just to highlight a few issues on behalf of the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation in South Africa. This edition comes a few months after the close of South Africa's presidency of the G20. During our presidency, we specifically built on the efforts of Brazil to strengthen the role, voice, and contribution of a diverse set of civil society actors in the G20 process. One of the engagements that South Africa prioritized within this framework was Ocean 20. In 2024, Brazil, under the leadership of INPO, and I see the leadership here, and drawing on a diverse set of actors, including researchers, industry, international multilateral organizations, worked together over multiple online and in-person engagements to generate the Ocean 20 communique. That communique identified 10 priority themes that align well with the 7 priorities that AAORIA has set for itself. Guided by the urgent need to action the communique, the South African Ocean 20 effort, guided by the South African Environmental Observation Network, and a number of the colleagues are in this room, included a focus on, and it aligns again with issues we've discussed, sustainable blue food systems, scaling up of ocean-based renewable energy, promotion of inclusive innovation, de-risking of finance through public-private philanthropic partnerships, and the urgent need to protect tropical coral reefs and expand ocean literacy. So we hope we're going to build on these efforts as we move forward. Since the signing of the AAORIA Declaration in 2022 in Washington, the approach and modalities of the partnership have matured, leading to tangible efforts that are yielding meaningful benefits to science and technology cooperation and to individual alliance partners. Annual forums such as this one provide members like myself and other members of the High-Level Advisory Board with important insights and issues that help to further mature and strengthen this alliance. I'm hoping that we will gain similar insights from this year's edition. In Cape Town in 2023, the annual forum identified ocean resilience and observation and modeling as the first 2 areas to be prioritized for action, following commitments from the EU and the US to provide the necessary leadership and support underpinned by this approach of voluntary leadership. Under the leadership of these two countries, two blocks, both of these priority areas have developed significantly, and I'm sure, like you, I look forward to getting a deeper understanding of what has been achieved during this showcase sessions, AAORIA in action on these topics. In addition to these priority actions, South Africa is pleased by the ongoing focus on ocean literacy and the development of early career professionals. South Africa fully appreciates, in particular, the leadership and focus being provided by Brazil in championing efforts to advance ocean literacy at every opportunity that they get. We look forward to seeing similar progress with respect to the new priorities that have emerged last year and that are emerging this year, including sustainable aquaculture under the leadership of Norway. We will be participating in all of those efforts. South Africa's inclusion as a founding member of an alliance designed on a shared commitment to the ocean and values underpinned by science diplomacy arose more than 10 years ago when we signed the Balham Statement, together with the European Union and Brazil. That laid the basis for establishing the AAORIA platform together with the Galway Statement, and was an important step in ensuring that both the Southern Atlantic and the Northern Atlantic come together into an innovation alliance. Let me conclude by just focusing a bit on South Africa's perspective. It is now clear that we are living in a world shaped by a policy crisis, which calls on all individuals, communities, and nations to reflect on how best to navigate such a policy polycrisis. The polycrisis includes the continued and broad-based impacts of climate change, biodiversity loss, and growing inequality and insecurity. Adding to this mix is a changing geopolitics, which is prompting all countries to reflect on its role in the world and its partnerships and interactions. Notwithstanding what aspect of the polycrisis we need to confront, scientific knowledge and technological developments are at the center of both creating the polycrisis and our ability to navigate out of this polycrisis that does not create further irreversible tipping points, but which helps to advance sustainable development. In this regard, we've, as I'm sure most countries have done, needed to reflect on our existing partnerships and participation in international initiatives, including one such as AAORIA. AAORIA continues to be a significant global partnership for us that aligns with our science, technology, and innovation priorities, which enable a fair and just developmental benefits for all parties. In particular, there are just quickly 6 issues that I want to highlight that I find very useful in the AAORIA way of working. One is the continued commitment to enhancing science diplomacy and the power of science to bridge divides. Secondly, the ability to find initiatives that have both global significance but can be localized and domesticated. In this regard, the Coastal Resilience Project with the establishment of beacon sites is one that we're taking advantage of. Thirdly is the need to continue to enhance open science, open data, and open access. And this was very nice to see in the ECOPS presentations yesterday, where this was an underlying emphasis around it. Fourthly, the development of a new generation of researchers that not only have the appropriate technical skills, but an appreciation and understanding of historical legacies that continue to reinforce divides, whether these are in capacity, digital infrastructure, even divides in terms of something as important as the level of observation we see in the Southern Atlantic. So I look forward to the ECOPS, this process under the leadership of people like Ziggy to build well-grounded, well-rounded new generation of early career professionals. Science engagement, and particularly the inclusion of indigenous knowledges and multiple worldviews. And finally, the commitment to address historical legacies. So AAORIA remains a very important partnership for multiple countries and for ourselves, and we look forward to not only contributing to this conference through the delegation that we've brought here, but also to the continued maturing and evolution of AAORIA as a significant global partnership that takes science into success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel, for sharing the perspectives and the priorities of South Africa. Ensure that this will guide the partnerships that will be built here and those that will continue on during this forum. And now I invite Anjali Goswami, Chief Scientific Advisor of the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs at United Kingdom, to give her welcome speech.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. Let me join my fellow speakers in first starting off by thanking Brazil for hosting this forum, which has been an absolutely fantastic one so far. I'm certainly looking forward to the rest of the program. And of course, Brazil has shown exceptional leadership over these years. I was fortunate enough to come to Belém for COP30 a few months ago. And it was really exciting to see at that event the focus on the ocean and the real central role that it played in discussions. And certainly a lot of my activities during COP was centered around ocean science and ocean policy. And of course, looking forward to the UN Ocean Decade Conference next year, also in Brazil. And so again, really highlighting Brazil's amazing leadership on the ocean. So with those two events last year and next year, it's of course entirely fitting that we are here in Brazil to talk about science and the science of the ocean, because of course science is central to the work that we do on the ocean. And of course, science is central to much of what we need to focus on to achieve government priorities more broadly. Now, the work that AAORIA is focusing on, the international collaborations around ocean science, are really critical for all of our countries, and certainly for the UK. It is really central for achievement of our government priorities. Now, like many governments, the UK is really focused on economic growth and national security and resilience. These are always going to be front and center of any nation's priorities. And science, and in particular of relevance for today, or for this meeting, the ocean science is absolutely critical to achievement of economic growth and national security. So for example, when we talk about ocean science, we know that it is central for the development and growth of a sustainable blue economy. And some of the work that has been done recently in the UK, for example, a study by funded by our Natural Environmental Research Council, has really highlighted that connection, showing that public investment in environmental science has a 23-fold return on investment, with something like 3.3 billion pounds of estimated economic value just in the field of the UK's offshore wind sector. And so it really demonstrates how science is pivotal to economic growth going into the future. Now, this past few months, we also in the UK hosted in Manchester IPBES 12, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And that, of course, is a scientific assessment that will inform on the CBD COP later this year. And the focus of this meeting this year was actually on the biodiversity and business assessment, which also really highlighted that link between the science of the environment, the science of biodiversity, terrestrial and marine, and the economic underpinnings for all of our nation's growth. And what that really provided was an understanding of how business and how the private sector must engage with their responsibilities to the environment, and also how the environment provides the foundation for economic growth. And that helps us really move past this idea of a trade-off between the environment and the economy. Rather, we need to move to an understanding and a shared vision of the environment as the critical foundation for the economy and for economic growth. Because there is no economy without a healthy environment, and that includes, of course, a healthy ocean. Now, of course, it's not just about the economy. When we think about things like national security and resilience, the environment and the ocean is absolutely critical to this. So earlier this year, the UK published a national security assessment of global biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. And this really highlighted the fact that we are not individual nations, completely isolated from the impacts of biodiversity loss and environmental degradation in other parts of the world, but really showed that global interconnection of our environments, and showed how the loss of critical ocean ecosystems that support major food production areas will really affect all of us, including in the UK. Now, of course, we also understand that the ocean plays a critical role in regulating our climate and weather, and developing our understanding of ocean and climate change will make sure that we can better support our coastal communities, as was highlighted earlier, but also all of our communities around the world in order to make sure that we are resilient to future climate change and can make sure that we are using our understanding, our scientific understanding, to make our countries stronger going forward. Now, again, as I highlighted, these are not things that we can accomplish by ourselves, right? We need to be working together, and AAORIA really highlights the strength of that international collaboration. And so the UK is absolutely committed to multilateral cooperation on ocean science and technology that supports our policies. A great example of this, of course, is the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement, and the UK has recently introduced a legislation and taken important steps towards ratifying that agreement. And that progress, that global progress on that treaty, would not be possible without the really critical work that ocean scientists have done and are continuing to do to demonstrate that areas beyond national jurisdictions are vulnerable to unregulated exploitation and to the impacts of climate change, and really helping us support the development of area-based management tools so that we can tackle those issues and ensure that the ocean continues to support and provide for all of our well-being and human health going forward. Through AAORIA, we also hope to build on the progress that we made at COP30, where the UK joined the Salt Marsh Breakthrough. And this is a global call to action to turn the tide on the conservation and restoration of these vital but incredibly degraded ecosystems. And so the research that scientists have been doing has really contributed to providing evidence on carbon sequestration, monitoring technologies, and frameworks for policy and financial investment into these ecosystems. Because again, we as governments cannot do all this alone. We need to be partnering with the private sector and with other parts of the public sector to make sure we tackle these challenges. And so we really want to make sure that we are focusing on really building a broad coalition to tackle these going forward through the science as the underpinning evidence for all of our work. So as we look towards 2030 and continuing to work towards achieving our sustainable development goals on the ocean, AAORIA can really help us strengthen this final push by supporting these collaborative science-driven projects and partnerships that really help us deliver the science that we need for the ocean that we want. And so I just want to close by thanking all of you, thanking our AAORIA partners and supporters for the commitment to this alliance, this work and cooperation as we all work together to really deliver sustainable use of a healthy and resilient ocean ecosystem. Thank you.
Mrs. Goswami, thank you for reminding us how ocean science needs to be the sustainable bridge between economic development and also national security. And now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Agustín Alberto Núñez, Consul of Argentina, to his welcome speech.
Distinguished authorities, Ms. Andrea Ladje, Ms. Dalila Andrade, Mr. James Morrison, Mr. Eirik Anekstad, Mr. Imran Patel, Ms. Anjali Goswami, representatives of governments, members of the scientific community, and dear participants. It is an honor for the Argentine Republic to take part in this new edition of the Forum of the Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance, AAORIA, a space that has become a key platform for international scientific cooperation and ocean matters. The importance of AAORIA lies in its ability to bring together efforts across regions, disciplines, and institutions, promoting a shared vision of the Atlantic as an integrated system, whose understanding and management necessarily require joint work. In a global context that calls for a deeper understanding of ocean ecosystems, this alliance is more relevant than ever. In this context, Argentina deeply values its active participation in the forum, as well as the presence of its scientific delegation. In particular, we would like to highlight the role of early career ocean professionals, ECOPs, whose participation not only strengthens national capacities, but also ensures the generational continuity of knowledge and commitment to the global ocean agenda. Their involvement and initiatives, such as the intergenerational hackathon and the various forum sessions, reflects the dynamism and forward-looking nature of our scientific community. Likewise, it is essential to highlight the work carried out during 2025, which has helped position Argentina in strategic areas such as ocean observation, marine spatial planning, coastal resilience, and aquaculture. For our country, it is especially important to continue advancing priority lines of work, such as marine spatial planning, including the Beacon Sites Network, developments in food web modeling, progress in aquaculture and the blue economy, as well as initiatives linked to large experimental scale. These areas reflect Argentina's concrete capabilities and represent strategic priorities that our country aims to further develop within the framework of this alliance. In this 2026 edition, we welcome the continuity of these lines of work, as well as the opportunity to follow up on and deepen the contributions made. The presentations and impacts that will take place throughout this forum reflect the sustained commitment of our researchers and institutions to the objectives of the Alliance. In this regard, Argentina reaffirms the importance of continuing to actively engage in AAORIA, not only from a formal perspective, but also at an operational level, contributing to the development of joint projects, the exchange of knowledge, and the strengthening of international network. We are convinced that this collaboration is essential to advance towards concrete and sustainable solutions for our oceans. Finally, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to the Federative Republic of Brazil for its hospitality as host of this forum and for the excellent organization of this event. In particular, to the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation of Brazil, as well as to OKEANO, for their commitment to making this space for dialogue, cooperation, and exchange possible. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Núñez, and thank you for our distinguished speaker for this inspiring open session, I think. And in fact, I don't think, I'm sure that we have a very clear navigation route for those 2 days. You have brought a true wave of inspiration to guide our discussions. Thank you very much, and I invite you to take a seat with our audience. And now it's my pleasure to invite our keynote speakers. First, I want to invite Professor Marinês Scherer. She holds a PhD in marine science, is a professor at the Federal University of Santa Catarina, Brazil, and the special envoy for the ocean for the COP30 presidents. She is also the co-chair of the EOC UNESCO Working Group on Sustainable Ocean Planning and Management. I also invite Professor Zelinda Leão, born in Jaguaquara, Bahia in 1934. She is a pioneer of Brazilian geoscience and marine studies. The first woman in her family to attend the university, she graduated in natural history from the Federal University of Bahia in 1958. Specialized in micropaleontology in Paris and earned a master's degree in geoscience at Federal University of Bahia. She completed her PhD at the University of Miami with research on the Abrolhos Reefs and became the first woman scientific diver in Brazil. A retired University Federal of Bahia professor, she remains active as a guest professor, researcher, mentor, and a national and international representative. A full member of the Bahia Academy of Science since 2011, she was honored in 2024 as an emeritus biologist, senior inspiration research by the UNESCO Ocean Chair, and the emeritus professor of the Federal University of Bahia. Her research on reef geology, natural process, and anthropogenic impacts underpin the creation of reef conservation units. And now I give the floor to Professor Scherer to deliver her presentation entitled Global Blue Mutirão.
Good morning. Bom dia a todos e todas. It's a very pleasure to be here. I thank you for the organizers to invite me to be here and to talk with you about the need of this global mutirão. I hope the idea here is to make us all think that we do need this global mutirão. And as you know, mutirão is a word used by the COP30 presidency to say that we have to work together for a common goal. So we have to put our hands together and work together for the ocean. And why? Because ocean is the main climate regulator. Ocean covers 71% of our planet. That should be called water, not earth. And ocean delivers 50% of the oxygen that we breathe for living. It absorbs more or less 25% of CO2, 90% of the heat, as you know. And we do have a conservation target of 30% by 2030 by the Biodiversity Convention. So we do need to get together to have a better ocean because, as we all say, there is no green without the blue. We need a healthy ocean to be able to keep having the ocean our bigger ally to face climate change, for instance. Also, ocean connects communities, ocean supports livelihoods. It's expected that in 2050, economy related to the ocean will be 4 times bigger than in 1995. More than 3 billion people depend on the ocean for food security, jobs, and livelihoods. And more or less 40% of the world's population live within 100 kilometers from the coast. It means it's very likely to suffer from extreme events and coastal erosion, for instance. And the ocean is under pressure, as we know. Climate pressure, we have ocean warming, circulation change, human pressures, pollution, habitat destruction, mining, deep sea mining, gas and oil extraction, overfishing. And all of that results and impacts in our systems. We change the chemistry of the ocean. We have a big biodiversity loss and sea level rise that affects all of us. We always have to think that it's one ocean and affects all of us. Everything that happens to the ocean happens to us. But we know what you have to do. Science is here, and we are all scientists here. We know that we have to do coastal and marine planning and management. We know that we have to include local leadership, local knowledge. We know that we have to align finance, private and public, to have more means to do that. Oh, sorry. I'm just passing here, not passing there. Great. we know that we have to have a just transition, energy transition. We know that we have to work more towards to sustainable food come from the ocean and have more resilient coastal areas. These three things here, plus, of course, the protection, they are in the blue package. That's the plan to accelerate solutions that comes from COP30. And we know to protect and restore our ocean with nature-based solutions, protecting critical ecosystems like mangroves, like coral reefs, and the whole ocean that serves as a climate regulator. And we need more marine protected areas. So the ocean is part of the global commons and must be managed as a common good of humanity. As I said before, it's just one ocean. And this solution requires integration across scales, strategies, policies, and agreements. So now I want to show you that's a figure that comes from the SOP, Sustainable Ocean Planning Handbook. And now we have there in the first line, land, territorial seas, EEZ, and areas beyond national jurisdiction. So you have the connection between land and ocean. And then here I have a number of strategies, tools, policies that we have to use all of them to be able to have a sustainable ocean. So watershed management, integrated coastal zone management, marine spatial planning, offshore sectoral planning, anyone, other effective area-based conservation measures, marine protected areas that we are just talking, climate change adaptation and mitigation plans. It's in the framework of UNFCCC, and biodiversity plans, this one, the Biodiversity Convention. And now we have also the BBNJ agreement, and we have our area-based management tools that we have to use to implement this agreement. And all that is under an umbrella of sustainable ocean planning and management. We just had approved last year from IOC UNESCO the SOPM strategy, and the idea is to use science to help countries to sustainable plan and manage their ocean. But we do need science, yes, but we can't forget that we do need stakeholders' participation. I want to stress here the need of including everybody that uses and lives from the sea in the process of planning and managing our ocean. We need to understand how different groups use the ocean and where these activities take place and how they value this place, how these areas are recognized as important for different social groups, especially indigenous peoples, local communities. We need that to have a better SOPM. So this is just a print for a screen of a tool that we are using to do participatory mapping in Brazil, to understand what's going on in our ocean, how our people is using the oceans. We can do that at regional level, at state level, or national level, but we can do that as well as in areas beyond national jurisdiction. We do have people using the ocean there. We do have people valuing that areas for their activities and livelihoods. And if you think that is not really good to see, but if you think that we don't have a lot of things going on there, we do. We do have deep sea mining that is about some people want to do, and energy development, we have shipping, we have tourism, oil and gas exploration, so we did need to understand that too and bring all these stakeholders together. And so we need traditional knowledge, local knowledge, and you do need science, and that's why we are here. And here is just some of the projects that I was participating or in touch with of the AAORIA. And we have the science. We need more science. We always need more science. But we have the science. We need more, but we have the science already to make decisions. And together with the local knowledge, we can make decisions, and we have to do that. But you have to do that, as I said before, in a global ocean, blue mutirão. And I know it's not an easy time to do that. It's not easy to get everybody to agree with something, but we cannot forget that it's just one ocean, and we need to do that. There's not a matter of if or when or if we want it, we have to maintain the health of our ocean, to maintain our own health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Scherer, for a truly inspiring perspective. And now I am happy to invite Professor Zelinda Leon to address how are our coastal ecosystem in the ocean decade.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you. The invitation to be here is really an honor to be here. And I'd like to excuse for my Bahia accent. I have been not working English for a while. The science we need from the ocean we want. This is the theme of the Declaration of the United Nations for the Decade of the Ocean. We are already at the middle of the decade. And how can this science help us understand and protect our ocean and our coastal ecosystem? Oh, the coastal area, why I say our coastal ecosystem? Because we are here in Bahia, and I am from here. The coastal of Bahia, the Bahia state, is the largest coastal area of the whole country. The marine area has more than half of the continental area. For that you can achieve this ocean we want and protect our ecosystem, we need to reach the 7 objectives of the ocean decade, which are a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a productive ocean, a predictive ocean, a safe ocean, an accessible ocean, and a inspired and engaged ocean. Are we achieving it? Here are some of our coastal system that we need to protect: restingas, rock shores, beaches, coral reefs, salt marshes, mangroves, oceanic islands, and seagrass meadow. And what is treated some of these ecosystems? Marine pollution related to plastic waste, chemical waste, sewage, oil spills, and heavy metals. Do you see at the left some of the plastic waste at the coast, at the beach along the coast of the Bahia state? The bottom photo is just what volunteers catches from the Barra beach one day after the Carnival feast. At the middle, you see Surgeons arrive at the beach along the coast of Salvador City. At the bottom, you see just at the Praia Beach, one of the most known beaches at the coast of Salvador. And in the middle, you see also the oil spill that in 2019 reached the coral reef of the Bahia states, just the coral reef from the island of Tiaré and Boipeba. And finally, on the right, you see one work made with researchers from Bahia that detected mercury in todos os Santos Bay coral reefs. Mercury was detected at the skeleton and the tissue of the corals that are the main construction of the coral reefs from the Todos os Santos Bay. Overfishing. Fishing can be artisanal or industrial. It is an important source of food and income. In Bahia, fish is predominantly artisanal, about 98%. Most threats of overfishing is related to the decrease in fish stocks. More of the catch in Bahia is about 50% is from juvenile forms. Imbalance in the food chain and habitat destruction when we use destructive techniques. You see at the left, when you use bottom throw nets above coral reefs, is a total destruction of the top of the reefs. And the second photo is fishing with explosive still have been used at Todos os Santos Bay. And you see, like last 2 years ago, hundreds of dead whale was found at one of the beaches of Todos os Santos Bay. The blue parrotfish is one of the main catches here in Bahia. What I show about the blue parrotfish is a species, this is hermaphrodite. The youngest are female, and the adults are male. So if you catch the top of the chain, the males, you are destructing the system of these fishes. And you have to respect for the close season. This is very difficult to hear. The lobster close the season, the shrimp close the season. Unappropriate use of ecosystem. The main threats here in Bahia are the uncontrolled urban development, the unregulated marine tourism, and the deforestation of mangroves. At the left, you see beach destroyed at the south of Bahia, the city of Ilhéus and Prado. At the middle, you see recreational activities of aquatic tourism. The people walking above the top of the coral reefs along the islands of Tiaré and Boipeba. You see the waste that they left in these places. And at the right, you see the destruction of mangrove for shrimp farms at the coastal of the part of the South Bahia state. Invasive species. The main threats are related to cause competition with native organisms for space-related nutrients, to prey on organisms altering habitat structure, and to cause a decrease in biodiversity. At the left, you see the sun coral that invaded Brazil in the decade of 1980s in Rio de Janeiro, and now is down for a few years ago, it started arriving in the coast of the coral reefs from the coast of Bahia. You see at the top one, the sun coral in yellow that is disposing space with one of the main constructions of the coral reefs in Todos os Santos Bay. And in the middle, you see a new invasion from a soft coral that is really occupy all the structures in Todos os Santos Bay. And here at the right, you see the lionfish that just invaded the Brazilian waters. Last year in Fernando de Noronha, and now in Todos os Santos Bay. This picture here in the right is just the last week that it was found at the Praia do Forte area. And what we need to do in order to protect our ecosystem challenges, increase financial investment in order to improve research infrastructures and develop science. The use of green technology, EA, drones, remote sensing, to reduce environmental impacts. The creation and strengthening of marine protected areas to improve the management of environment protection areas, extractive reserves, parks, and so on, with the enhancement of natural heritage and environmental awareness. Address climate change to the CO2 emission and sea level rise. The development of the blue economy for growth in research in aquaculture, sustainable fishing, marine biotechnology, and promotion of ecotourism and nautical sports. And more investment in public policies aimed to ocean sustainability and better control of the impacts of anthropogenic activities such as litter, illegal fishing, predatory tourism, uncontrolled urban development, and so on. And about the marine protected areas in Brazil, the left one graphic, you see the comparison from Brazil and the world. You see that the world didn't reach 10%. The dark blue is the high protection. Light blue is the minimum protection. And orange, you see that the protection is not yet implemented. And the red one is not protection. You see that in Brazil didn't reach 30% of the protected area, but only 12% has protection, effective protection. In the oranges, they are protected only in the papers. And if you compare with the data that I found about the Bahia state, the protection are really high. If you see the blue one, more than 40%, but I am sure that the orange in Bahia is more than 50% of this blue area. Some in Bahia that are under the federal are the park, the Abrolhos National Marine Park, the first national marine park in Brazil. Some research from under the state, there is more than 30 marine protected areas, but I'm sure the most of them are yet in the paper. And some municipalities, there is some proposals, some that are already implemented. And before finishing, I would like to finish with the words of Dr. Sylvia Early. Dr. Sylvia is an oceanographer dedicated to the marine research and conservation and pioneers in deep diving, reaching depths of over 300 meters. At 9 years old, she is an active researcher with a global voice for the ocean conservation. Here they are. We can't take everything and still expect it to work. Therefore, 30% protection of land and sea by 2030 is good. But we can't destroy the remaining 70%. We have to reach an agreement to make peace with all of data, find our place with the system, respect each other. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Professor Leão, and it's also so inspiring to hear from two Brazilian professors that are international references in their areas of expertise. We will now take a short break of 30 minutes. Please enjoy this time, but don't navigate too far, as we kindly ask you to return on time once we need to be at Habor on time to continue our panels. Thank you very much. Once again, good morning, everyone. It's time to continue navigating through our event. Now, building on this inspired keynote, we move to our first section, entitled Our Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance in Action, Ocean Literacy and Broadening Engagement. This section will be moderated by Camila Keiko Takahashi. She has over than 15 years experience in the environmental and educational sectors. Currently, she serves as the coordinator of the Brazilian Ocean Literacy Alliance and the South Atlantic Regional Coordinator of the Blue School Global Network. She holds an MBA in ESG and a master's in water and coastal management. Please join me in welcoming our moderator.
Good morning, everyone. Bom dia and welcome. So as I was presented already, I'm Keiko, coordinator of Brazilian Ocean Literacy Alliance, which is a network of public and private institutions engaged and mobilized to internalize ocean literacy within their institutions. I'm honored to be the moderator of this session, or In Action, Ocean Literacy and Broaden Engagement, and to bring us insight from different perspectives to broaden the engagement of different stakeholders, I invite and welcome to the stage our session speakers. Dr. Will McClintock, Senior Fellow at the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis at the University of California, Santa Barbara. His labs develops and implements SeaSketch, a web-based application for collaborative marine spatial planning. Ms. Siggy Gruber, Senior Advisor and Expert in Ocean Science Diplomacy, with a focus on communicating research for decision-making. Mr. Justin Munyaneza, Director of the Office of International Science, Partnership and Collaboration from Fisheries and Oceans, Canada. Ms. Kogi Govender, Science Engagement Coordinator at the South African Environmental Observation Network, SEON, from South Africa. Ms. Dominika Wojciechek, Project Manager at the European Marine Science Educator Association and Blue School Officer at the Network of European Blue Schools. Ocean literacy is understanding of how the ocean influences us and how we influence the ocean, whether we live near or far from it. The concept was born within the educational area, and over the decades, it has evolved into a focus on behavioral change for a healthy ocean, and it requires communication and education across all sectors and all generations of society. Therefore, thinking about ocean literacy means thinking about and engaging with the private sector, policy and decision makers, journalists, local communities, students, and many other stakeholders. Within the framework of AAORIA, ocean literacy is defined as an indispensable cross-cutting priority for translating scientific knowledge into social and political action. The Alliance recognizes that ocean sustainability requires a systematic connection of all relevant actors to identify research and innovation activities with lasting impact. Promoting ocean literacy is the catalyst for broadening public engagement and ensuring that science is, in fact, geared toward benefiting society. This session focuses on priority 2D of declaration, promoting ocean literacy and broaden engagement in ocean sciences and sustainability. And it will have the first part with collaboration and insights from our amazing speakers, followed by a Q&A. Given the previous presentation by keynote speakers Dr. Marinês Scherer and Dr. Zelinda Leon, and the concept of ocean literacy, which is to engage people in behavior change for sustainable ocean, I invite Will McClintock to share some insights on engagement and decision-making from local to areas beyond national jurisdictions. Please, as you wish.
Check, check. Good morning, everybody. Bom dia. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be talking about a particular style of stakeholder engagement, which I think is very effective, particularly in the context of marine spatial planning, which is a field that I work in. So a lot of us are familiar with this idea, but we're essentially talking about ocean zoning, which is intended to allocate ocean space in an equitable way to ocean users for the sustainable use of ocean resources and protection of vulnerable ecosystems. And these zones include regulations that essentially affect a lot of people's lives and livelihoods. I like the photos that we've been looking at. A lot of them really include pictures more of ocean users than oceans themselves, and that's an important concept here. A lot of people use ocean space, and when we don't engage them properly, often our plans fail. So I'll be talking about a method I use that I think is particularly effective, and that's participatory mapping, where people are just pointing at maps and drawing shapes, indicating places of value or ideas for how they think ocean space should be used. So here's one example, an ocean use survey. It's a technique we've used all over the world. In these surveys, people are just pointing to usually digital maps and saying, this place is important to me for various kinds of activities, fishing, diving, surfing, shipping, whatever. And it's valuable to me for my livelihoods or for my spirituality, or it has cultural value. And then those shapes are represented in the form of a heat map like this one. I really like this example. This is a recent one from the northern 3 states of Brazil. A group called Mares do Norte went out and surveyed with a team of trained surveyors 1,200 miles of coastline. They visited 1,100 different communities, interviewed thousands of people representing 13,000 in the end people who said, these are the places important to me. And this is a heat map showing the places that are important to the artisanal fishers that were interviewed. So this is a really wonderful way of engaging people, because in the act of being surveyed, they feel listened to, and the results of that listening experience are represented in a very concrete way that is inserted into a transparent planning initiative. So the second kind of participatory mapping is geodesign, or collaborative geodesign of zones. In this case, they're not indicating places that they go and value necessarily. They're indicating places that they would like to have zoned with specific regulations. So when they're drawing on the map, they say, this is a place I think should be protected, or this is a place I think we should allow or permit aquaculture or floating solar. But when they draw those shapes, they get analytical feedback that tells them something about the consequence of their design. So are they meeting science and policy objectives for ecosystem protection, using various kinds of authoritative data sets, habitat models, prioritization maps, and so on? And are they minimizing displacing people from the places that they value? So they get reports back, and sometimes using those ocean use surveys that say, if I put a marine protected area here, these are the communities, these are the people that we affected, and by how much. So that kind of geodesign experience is something that non-technical people can do as a means of participating in planning and to have their ideas feel really heard. So that's a stakeholder engagement process I think is very, very effective. So all in all, these methods of participatory mapping are a great way to socialize a process, to show up and at the very start of a process say, we're interested in listening to you and hearing what your values and ideas are. They're a fantastic way to gather essential data and knowledge from local populations, stakeholders, and rights holders. And they're a great way to ensure that the plans in the end reflect the values of ocean users themselves, which ultimately is one of the things that is most important in generating buy-in, right? And as I said before, I've seen a lot of these sort of planning efforts fail when they don't take the time to begin the process by first listening and reflecting the values and ideas of the stakeholders. So I think this is a great way to do it. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Will. So the key words are participation, engagement, and exchange of knowledge, as I think in my heart. Thank you. The ocean literacy gathers people from different areas, genders, cultures, ages, and places for a sustainable ocean. Ms. Siggy, could you briefly present us the Blue Intergenerational Program and comment on the importance of intergenerational initiative for a stronger ocean governance, please?
Yes, good morning to everyone. I actually continue where you stopped because I think it is really closing this gap between knowledge production, taking into account user needs and implementing the solutions. So thank you for having me here. And I think we can start with the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, thank you. So the Intergenerational Program was launched last September at the Forum in Brussels, and we have already done a lot. But my thanks really go to the OKEANO team of our intergenerational team, the OKEANO people, and the whole network of ocean professionals and ECOPs which are behind this program. And of course, the support from Director James Morrison and the Commission colleagues. So thank you for that. I am skipping because I really want now to focus. So the program's the intergenerational dimension is actually a critical innovation. It combines the experience and the historical perspective of older generations with the creativity and urgency of the younger, in this case, the ECOPs sitting here and the many out there, younger generation, creating really continuity and long-term stewardship. So the initiatives represent a strategic evolution from knowledge to engagement, from individual awareness to collective responsibility, because we have to do it all together, from short-term activities to intergenerational continuity, and that is really the nitty-gritty. It's the principle of the SDGs. Nobody is left behind. It is all generations that need to be involved. And it's from a top-down communication to co-creation and participation. So why to participate? I already told you why. And let me, I'm not very technical. So the progress that we have made is around the different pillars. First of all, the creation of the All-Atlantic Blue Intergenerational Platform, which is a virtual platform where different opportunities for young people are stored and accessible and regularly now updated thanks to the OKEANO colleagues. The Atlantic Summer School, which just took place last week here, thanks to CMPQ and IMPO, Delaney and Janice sitting here, which brought together 15 young people from all over the Atlantic countries. The Floating University Network, which is a bottom-up network of 40 research programs from 27 different countries from around the Atlantic. And Luis is really pushing for that. And we also have, for the moment, the WILL project, which I saw they have published now a call for expressions of interest who wants to join, to go on the ship in South Africa for about a month. I am really bad with this. And last but not least, the hackathon, and you will all hear, stay tuned, you will hear the fantastic results tomorrow. So this is a glimpse of the platform. Anyone who has a research opportunity to offer to young people can actually access it, and just fill out the survey, and then the colleagues will do the rest. It will be visible. So this is a great way, really, of promoting the different opportunities, different summer schools, different courses for young people, which not always are easily accessible. It is also linked to other existing platforms. For example, the one which has been produced and developed as part of the Ocean Decade. Floating University, the Intergenerational Hackathon. Okay, so why should you join the intergenerational program? And what are really some policy recommendations that I would like to give? First, intergenerational, really, the support to intergenerational approach should be recognized as a key mechanism for long-term sustainability. It should be embedded in ocean policy much, much more. Young people should be empowered to come on stage all the time in any conference and be part of the decision-making so that decisions are actually tailored to their needs. We need to continue to invest in capacity building in the different summer schools, dialogues, and networks, including networks for bringing on board older people, professionals. And we need to ensure long-term funding support. And for that, I thank really the high-level board of AAORIA for their continuous support. Thank you. My time is over.
Thank you, Siggy. I had the opportunity to participate in the hackathon for the last 2 days. And it was amazing to see so many early career professionals working together from different backgrounds for the same goal. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and congrats to all my colleagues from the hackathon the last year. And don't miss tomorrow's presentation. Their pitch will be amazing. So ocean sustainability depends on the ability to connect diverse knowledge systems, institutions, and communities in ways that build trust, shared understanding, and long-term engagement. Canada's ocean literacy ecosystem offers several distinctive features, including the integration of Indigenous knowledge and the presence of a national convening body, the Center for Ocean Literacy Collaboration. This strong ecosystem helps support informed dialogue around complex ocean governance tools. So I invite Mr. Justin to present unique features, and give some examples of how ocean literacy is now leveraged in Canada. Please.
Thank you, Kiko. Good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here and to join you all. Yes, sorry about that. All right, back on track. So, Canada. Surrounded by 3 oceans, Canada is a proud maritime nation with the world's longest coastline. While more than 7 million Canadians live in coastal communities, the ocean matters to all Canadians, wherever they live. In Canada, ocean literacy is not just about awareness, it's about building shared understanding about cultures, knowledge systems, and government contexts. So that ocean decisions are trusted, legitimate, and supported over the long term. Today, I would like to briefly highlight 3 features that make Canada's ocean literacy ecosystem strong and help broaden engagement. So first, Canada's ocean literacy ecosystem brings together all levels of governments, academia, Indigenous organizations, NGOs, educators, youth, and industry. At its core, it's a national catalyst and convener. The center of the Ocean Literacy Collaboration, we call it COLC. In 2021, under the leadership of COLC, Canada became the first country to launch a national ocean literacy strategy. It was co-developed through extensive engagement and reflects perspectives from across the country, including strong indigenous leadership. This strategy provides a shared roadmap to strengthen ocean knowledge, stewardship, and access to learning. COLC is now updating the strategy for 2026. And importantly, this work goes beyond counting activities of participation. COLC is focused on understanding impact, how ocean literacy influences people's attitudes, behaviors, relationships, and participation in ocean decision-making. These insights are continuously used to improve approaches and ensure ocean literacy efforts lead to meaningful and lasting change and not just outreach. Second point I want to make is that I would like to talk to you about the intentional integration of Indigenous knowledge, which is really important in Canada. A defining feature of Canada's approach is the integration of Indigenous knowledge systems alongside Western science, often described as two-eyed seeing. Indigenous peoples have cared for lands and waters since time immemorial. Ocean literacy initiatives increasingly highlight Indigenous governance principles, intergenerational stewardship, and place-based knowledge, helping people understand the ocean as a living system with cultural, legal, and spiritual dimensions. A recent example of this is Fisheries and Oceans Bridging Indigenous and Science-Based Knowledge web portal. This was co-developed with Indigenous partners. It raises awareness of diverse ways of knowing, connects knowledge holders, and supports collaboration in new and respective ways. Now, as a side note, I would like to invite you all to look at a new publication released by the Canadian Commission for UNESCO entitled Co-Design for a Sustainable Future, Empowering Ocean Communities to Lead Change. Third point I want to make is a concrete example of how the power of ocean literacy is being harnessed to support governance. We're seeing more intentional efforts use ocean literacy as a tool within ocean governance processes. This recognizes that effective decision-making depends not only on ecological science, but on understanding the human dimensions of ocean issues. Ocean literacy supports informed dialogue around complex tools such as marine spatial planning, as was mentioned earlier, fisheries management reforms, and marine protected areas. Public understanding helps shape policy, while governance challenges help focus literacy efforts, creating a valuable loop. Continued investment in ocean literacy helps close that gap and support stronger stewardship. Now, in closing, ocean literacy is practical, not abstract. By connecting knowledge systems, building trust, and sustaining engagement, it enables a more inclusive, resilient, and forward-looking ocean governance. Canada's experience shows that when people see themselves as part of the ocean story, they're more likely to engage, care, and act. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Now we return to the origins of ocean literacy, which began in the field of education, with a central partner who was involved in the creation of the All-Atlantic Blue Schools Network and the governance of AAORIA. Ms. Kogi, Governor, how does HEON practically interconnect traditional knowledge with ocean literacy and ocean science to ensure that learners and teachers are not just consumers of content, but active participants in the co-production of knowledge that respects community sovereignty and fosters true ocean stewardship?
Thank you, Keiko. Good morning to everyone. Today, I'm going to share our Blue Schools program that was formulated through the AAORIA Work Package 6 for Anchor Project. So South Africa hosts the Blue Schools through the South African Environmental Observation Network, SEON, which is funded by the Department of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And our whole aim of this project is to overcome barriers to ocean access and experiences, connecting coastal and inland learners to marine science and ocean literacy. So why co-production of knowledge is important? So we know that our communities that we work with are very closely connected with nature. They observe and interpret climate science at very small spatial scales. Sometimes you have a scientist that goes into a community only during seasonal changes, but the community is there every day and they are able to observe and interpret what is happening in their environment. So when we include our beneficiaries in decision making, we ensure that we promote sustainable practices of climate action. It is about engaging all voices and perspectives, and it's not an afterthought. So in our programs, before we implement any of these programs, we have co-design workshops with our beneficiaries, whether they are educators or the learners that we are working with. And we find that by doing this, we are creating a safe space where everybody feels that their knowledge is valued and they contribute positively to our programs. So how do we go about co-producing the knowledge? So we look at the emotional connections, we look at the spiritual connections by asking our learners and educators during our programs, how do they connect to the ocean? Looking at our inland learners, we ask them, how do you connect to rivers that then connect to our oceans? And if you look at the image on my right, you will see that Nomvelo, one of our learners, produced an artwork that shows that how her ancestors had taught her about the importance of protecting the oceans. So we also look at the socio-cultural services and ask learners and educators to provide information on the social cultural services that the ocean provides for them. Thereafter, we look at local case studies that are relevant to them from the areas that they are coming from. We also look at their language and translate some of our materials into local languages that are easily accessible to them. And then we integrate local and indigenous knowledge through our art competitions, our photo voicing programs, and our storytelling, that is digital storytelling programs. Thereafter, we bring in the scientific knowledge where learners design research projects, and we ensure that they enhance the data fluency through our marine science programs. And some of the pictures you see there, on a yearly basis, we host a Blue Schools conference in South Africa, and we take kids from across the country to participate in this conference, where learners then share the research projects, the environmental action projects that they took, and how they created some impact in their communities. So, what do we get from this program about co-engaging and co-designing science engagement and ocean literacy programs with our beneficiaries? We find that there is no one size that fits all, and on a yearly basis, we need to do reflections and revise our program and our materials. We also know that it's very, very important for us to include those that were historically disadvantaged and underrepresented in the ocean literacy discourse and marine science. So we focus a lot on working with our rural schools and providing opportunities for these learners to not only get access to marine science education, ocean literacy, but also to get to the ocean and connect with the ocean. And lastly, we want to inspire ocean stewardship, and we also want to provide a pipeline for the intergenerational program that is being run through AAORIA. Thank you.
Thank you, Kogi. We have heard accounts from previous speakers on how ocean literacy has broadened engagement in different settings, from decision makers to traditional and indigenous communities, going through schools, and the importance of intergenerational initiatives and their significance for a healthy ocean. Europe has a structured network of blue schools, initiated and funded by the European Commission, and led by the European Marine Science Educator Association, MCTI. Ms. Dominique, will you share with us about how schools in Europe are integrating ocean literacy into their curriculum and what role formal education plays in creating ocean science citizens?
Thank you, Keiko, for this question. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. The short answer to this question, how schools integrate ocean literacy into curricula, is always there's no one size fits all. The model that we adopted at the European Union level for schools is one that gives teachers and students the freedom to find their own connection with the ocean and to decide how they want to learn about the ocean. We know that teachers are super overburdened, overworked, underpaid, but at the same time, they are the experts of formal education. They know the curricula, they know their students, they know their local school environment, they know the opportunities and the limitations to incorporating something in their teachings. So at the Network of European Blue Schools, since also we're working, across 27 member states in 24 languages, we decided not to develop a program, a ready-to-go program that we can bring to schools and tell them, follow those 8 or 10 steps and you will become a blue school and you will become an ocean steward. We leave it in the hands of schools. We tell them, we encourage them to find their connection with the ocean, to follow it, and to develop their own projects. We also map and contact schools that are already doing the work, that are maybe involved by other institutions, they're maybe on the coast, and just sort of wanted to develop a program around the ocean to bring the ocean into the classroom. And then we invite those schools to join the network. The way it works in practice is that we have an online application form, and teachers are encouraged to apply by filling out the form. And among the information that they provide us with is, of course, the description of the project that they conducted or are conducting. And when the application like that gets accepted, a few things happen for the teachers. One is that they become a member of the Network of European Blue Schools and get access to resources and opportunities that help them advance their own knowledge and their own journey with ocean literacy. They receive a certificate, so they are officially certified EU Blue School, and their project gets published on the pages of the Network of European Blue Schools, so it can be showcased to the world and you can see the projects on the website. But what happens for me from the perspective of the facilitator of the network is that I have this amazing privilege of reading all those applications and seeing all those projects. And that's how I know there is no one size fits all, because the amazing variability and creativity and the diversity of the projects that we see is just indescribable. So in the 3 years that I've been doing this work and facilitating the network, I saw students developing podcasts about the ocean. I saw students prototyping filtering systems for microplastics. I saw students organizing science fair and doing art and art shows and festivals. I saw students developing toy exchange programs on the beach to prevent plastic pollution from toys on their local beaches. I saw students, younger students, using a game, Minecraft, that I'm not very familiar with the game, but I've learned through those applications that you can create your own worlds in Minecraft. So they would be recreating marine ecosystems in those games to learn better about the ocean environment. And of course, among older students, we see a lot of projects that we would call strictly scientific. So anything from local water monitoring, beach cleanups with trash monitoring, or even using open source data to explore the features of the ocean. So my perspective is that really the sky is the limit, and students and teachers together, if they're given the freedom to find their own connection with the ocean, they will find the way to learn about it and to incorporate ocean literacy in their classrooms, in their schools. And that, brings me to the second part of your question on how formal education can help create ocean citizens. To me, we often talk blue schools, so we talk schools, we talk students, But the real ocean citizens, the first ones, are the teachers. They are the people that have the knowledge, and they're stewards for the ocean because they take this knowledge and they share it further with their students, helping create more ocean literate citizens. And the combination of the rigid, formal education system and the flexibility of the blue schools in Europe empowers the students and the teachers, allowing them to really make the connection with the ocean and build a new generation of ocean citizens. Thank you.
Really good. We have some time to get like 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if you feel like. Just raise your hand for any of our panelists, not speakers. No? Yeah?
Thank you. Excuse me. Late in the week after the hackathon, but thank you all very much for your insights. And just very briefly, I would love to hear maybe what you feel are the major challenges and kind of barriers to be overcome in continuing to expand the broadening of engagement in ocean literacy. I know you've mentioned a lot of levers and platforms and facilities to kind of continue the engagement, but what are the next challenges you see coming down the line that we need to really tackle and prioritize? I would love to hear from all of you, of course, so as you like. Thank you.
I'll take a stab from my perspective. Thanks for the question. I mean, for me, with the populations I work with, it's critical that they have some understanding of marine spatial planning and marine protected area planning before they're willing to be properly engaged. On the other hand, sort of conversely, if we start stakeholder engagement with lecturing them about why marine spatial planning is so important for them and how it's going to benefit them and all that, we'll lose them, right? So that's where I feel like the barrier is. We need to think more about starting with the listening process and asking people, what do you value about the ocean and how does it affect your life? And maybe that's a 2-hour listening experience before you get to the point of then saying, okay, now that I understand your values, let me talk to you about what the government is doing with respect to marine planning and conservation.
I'm gonna piggyback on that and make an observation. So somebody once told me that imagination is easier when it's closer to the eye. So why am I saying this? When we all walk outside and look at the sky, we think about space and how it looks like. There was the recent mission to the moon where Canada and the US worked in close collaboration and inspired kids, space nerds, all those people. But that's what we need for ocean literacy, something similar. Because not everybody lives close to the ocean, right? So you don't have that imagination when you walk outside for some people who don't live in coastal cities. So I would say that's a challenge. How do we inspire like the space people do?
The challenge, as I mentioned before, is really linked as well to behavioral change. And I think we need to really think in terms of the whole pipeline, so from the cradle to the grave, I would say. So taking really the very good example that in Brazil you have now the blue schools embedded into the curricula. I think that is something which can inspire. And then the intergenerational program, which goes hand in hand as well with ocean literacy, has to take this forward and really continue to empower the young people to step up, that their voice is heard, even if it is not always a desired voice, but it is right that it is heard. And then as well, continue this into the sustainability, and for that, much more funding is needed. So I would say a change of mentality and much more funding. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think from my side, it's how do we reach every learner out there, every educator out there. And as science engagement and ocean literacy practitioners, we can't do it on our own. So my call is for all the scientists in the room, young or old, ECOPs, to mentor and coach these learners. If each of you could go out there and support one learner, we can make a difference in society.
My experience is that when it comes to the network of European Blue Schools, as I mentioned, we work across 27 member states, 24 languages. So the language barrier is always an issue. And, you know, we all at meetings like that communicate in English, but of the 24 or the 27 member states, to speak English as an official language, right? And then, so even the term ocean literacy is very hard to translate. So how do we reach all those communities with ocean literacy if we don't have a good word in each language for ocean literacy? There is Cultura Oceánica in Spain, and there is awareness in other countries. So really creating relevant even names or materials or context in all the languages is something that will really help bring the concept of ocean literacy closer to people in different regions of Europe.
Thank you. The human dimension is a central axis of cooperation within AAORIA. The engagement of citizens, indigenous and local communities, policy and decision makers, young people, and professionally seen not only as an educational action, but as a strategy of ocean conservation for renewing the intellectual and diplomatic capital of the Alliance, ensuring the continuity of sustainability policies beyond 2030. Hope this session has brought inspiration to you all to keep on connecting, cooperating, acting for a sustainable ocean. Thank you to the organizers and, of course, to the amazing speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all the panelists for such thoughtful presentations on how we can build ocean literacy scenes from the schools. And as we continue our discussions across ocean regions, we now turn our attention to the vital connections between the Atlantic and the polar seas. So this next section highlights how these linkages shape our understanding of global ocean systems. So for this panel entitled Our Linkage with the Polar Seas, I invited to be the moderator, Professor Ronaldo Cristofoletti, who is a professor at the Federal University of São Paulo, coordinator of the Maré de Ciência program, executive secretary of the Brazilian Ocean Literacy Alliance, co-chair of the Strategic Communication Group for the UNESCO Ocean Decade, member of the UNESCO Ocean Literacy for All program, and the president of the UNESCO EOC Expert Group on the Ocean Literacy. Please join me in welcoming our moderator.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Ronaldo Cristofoletti. Maybe many of you used to know me by the ocean literacy aspect, but I'm also a member of the Brazilian Antarctic program, doing research in Antarctica. Just came back, staying 2 months there. So I'll be moderating this session. There will be rather a conversation with colleagues. I will just set the scene for us that when we think about AAORIA, we are saying about the Atlantic Basin, but from pole to pole. How much are we really considering the polar seas and the polar influence in the Atlantic dimension? What can we be doing more regarding this? When we think about the Atlantic as a whole, our main goal here, the currents depends on the polar regions. the biodiversity, the climate change. So all parts and all steps that go through economies, through Atlantic system, and their impact in the terrestrial systems, and by that in the economy, in the health, are also linked to the polar seas. But both polar regions are under stress as well. Are we considering that? Are we considering that when we think about our priorities in the area and in the groups in the hackathon, how that could influence the sargassum, the climate resilience, the fisheries? So the discussion we will be having today is really how can we strengthen this link? What are some knowledge and research that are already being doing in our state members, and what can be next steps? Some of those images show us a little bit of this stress that I will show in data to finalize soon. That is, we are having an ice melt as never seen before. Most of the problems we are facing have these linkages with the polar seas. But how much are we considering that? Here just few data, scientific data. Here in the sea ice extent. Those graphics show from January to December. Here in the left, Antarctica, Arctic in the right. What we have here is that in the top, the black line with the gray area is the mean and deviation, where are all the ice extent in the last 40 years. And in red, in both sides, is the year of 2024. Just to have one putting that in a perspective for everyone. The amount of ice that we don't have, that we lost in Antarctica in 2024 was equivalent of the area of France, Germany, and Spain. At the same year, the amount of ice that we extended, that we lost, or we didn't have as ice, sea ice in the Arctic was the equivalent of Sweden, Portugal, Norway, Poland, Italy, UK, and Greece. Basically, in 2024, we remove more than half Europe of ice of this planet. If we look here now for the glacier mass, here are how many gigatons we lost in the last 40 years. This is the equivalent of having all the fresh water from the Amazon River discharging in the ocean, equivalent to 1 year and 2 months, is as we got all that fresh water that came from the glacier mass and flew in the ocean. And there is what we have in the sheet mass, in the global areas. And here in the bottle, we can see in Greenland or in Antarctica, the most affected areas. So this has happened. All those water coming to the ocean, sea level rise, changes in salinity, and many other impacts. To discuss a little bit on that, I will then now, based on this introduction, invite the speakers that will have a conversation, will be rather a conversation. So please, I invite to join me Dr. Karin Kronborg-Spain from the Institute of Marine Research in Norway, Gaziza Konisova from the Alfred Wegener Institute from Germany, and Emmanuel Eresania from Manioff University in Ireland. Please join me to the stage. I think I can share. There is other mic with that, and then we can. Okay. So, and also I want to acknowledge that unfortunately we should have also a few colleagues from Argentina in the panel. Unfortunately, they were not able to make the trip. So, but I want to acknowledge that the acceptance to be here discussing with you. I first would just like to start the first round asking each of you to introduce yourself and what is your connection with the polar seas research and the talks that come. Can we start with you, Karin, please?
Hello, everybody. I'm a research director at the Institute of Marine Research, and we do science advice for both ministries, directorates, and authorities in Norway. And of course, the science part of it is very important. It's not my area of expertise, but I asked my two program directors who does this on a daily basis. That means the program for the Barents and the Polar Seas, and the program for global development who does the Antarctic research. And what is very important for us is that we do have a very strong linkage to the polar regions as a polar nation. When it snows in April, you sort of know you're in a polar country. And so it's been important for us to focus on that we do mapping, we do surveillance, and we do research. So I'll come back to some of these things that worries us and what we do with in the polar regions, but it's very important for us to be present on both poles and do the research that is needed.
Thank you so much. Also ask Emmanuel then, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Emmanuel Herisonya. I'm an ocean climate scientist with background in meteorology, climate change, and physical oceanography. My research revolves around the Atlantic Meridional Ocean circulation and its connection with the pole. I guess as the conversation continues, you hear more about me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Bom dia. My name is Gaziza Konisova. I'm a researcher at Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany. I just recently finished my PhD, and my research focuses on hydrodynamic and coastal ocean modeling, particularly in the North Sea. I don't have direct polar research or polar focus on polar sciences. However, this is exactly the topic of our panel, that it's the linkages of polar seas and how it manifests in other regions in the world.
Thank you. And I think this is the greatness we have in this panel. Different generations, intergenerational knowledge, different perspectives from Arctic to Antarctic, different backgrounds. So what I would like to start to explore with you is that if you look at AAORIA, the agreement is based in few priorities. And for the Atlantic, I will highlight some of them that are ocean climate, coastal resilience, fisheries, circular blue economy, ocean literacy. What I would like for us to discuss a little bit now is how you see in those priorities this linkage between the polar seas and the Atlantic in order we can advance really in the AAORIA priorities. So I might start with Karin, maybe focusing a little bit more on the fisheries circular economy, but you can address how many you want.
I'm feeling very old up here now. I think that the priorities of the AAORIA is very central here, and as the director said in his introductory talk, that the polar regions is very important. And I think what stands out to me when I'm going through all the material we reiterated in our institute the last days is that it's a very interdisciplinary research. is about sustainable use, is about conservation. Of course, in Norway, we also feel that the geopolitical resilience is at risk in a fashion. But what I noticed is last year when we had the side event in Brussels on the polar regions, they showed a map of the interconnectivity between the polar regions and the Atlantic. And somebody said, what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic, but what also happens is that everything you put into the sea gets to the Arctic, which is a huge problem. And what our research has shown over the last years is that, for instance, the Barents Sea and the Polar Sea is getting more Atlantic. The species moves northwards. You get newer species. What we also see in Norway, one of our really iconic species is the Northeast Arctic cod. Some years back, it was postulated that they wouldn't do so badly in climate change, and today we sort of see that that's not true. It is lower than it has been in very many years, and this is a resource we have depended on for, I don't know, 600 years or something. So I think that the priorities of AAORIA is very important, and to understand the interconnectivity of the Atlantic and the polar regions is going to be very important, and that these areas are more affected by the climate change than we probably would like to think.
Thank you. And Emmanuel, going the same direction and mainly considering by also our experience the ocean climate impacts and all those relationships, how you see the interconnection?
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful question. Yesterday we did make a comment during our hackathon presentation that the ocean is not disconnected, as though we see, I'm from Ireland, you're from Brazil, there's boundary. Those are physical boundaries, but the oceans are actually connected. And I did make a funny point yesterday. I said the Atlantic Meridional Ocean Circulation is a driving engine that actually drives and shows a physical connection between the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic. And similarly, the polar region acts as a control center of the Atlantic system. In the north, processes such as deep water formation drives the Atlantic meridional circulation, which distributes it globally. In the south, around the Southern Ocean, strong winds and then mixing regulates the exchange. So we do see that, okay, so we are talking about the poles, the Atlantic, they are not disconnected. So they are both interconnected. So the system is a loop. So you see the moisture being transported, what's it called? The sea surface temperature being transported from the equator to the poles. Then we have a deep water formation from the pole downward. It keeps the loop over. So it's just it's a loop, so we can't actually disconnect it. So which actually confirms the fact that so there's no disconnection between the pole and the Atlantic, and the polar activities actually plays a prominent role in modulating the North Atlantic weather conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And all those changes in circulation, nutrients, and so on, it impacts in coastal areas. And I guess that goes closer to your research as well. So how you see the climate resilience studies linking advances in a area linked with the polar seas?
Yeah, connecting the polar changes in the polar regions, how they manifest then in a very localized coastal areas. In my research, I also study sea level rise, and as we project future changes and future sea level rise scenarios, of course, we use these numerical models, and when we talk about future projections, of course, we are talking about different scenarios, and each scenario has uncertainties. And with sea level rise, the largest contributor in the long term and also the source of largest uncertainty is actually the melting of Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets. So to be able to to adapt and mitigate future changes, we have to know what to expect. And that's why we also have to try to resolve all these melting mechanisms, everything in a very detailed, also in a very localized coastal scales. And referring to the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, partly the rising sea levels. So we have global mean sea level rise, but at each coast we have the deviation up to 30% from the global mean. And that deviation is also contributed by changes in the ocean circulation, for example, the large oceanic and atmospheric circulations like the AMOC. And with the climate change, this potential slowdown of AMOC can also further propagate to the coast and changing the coastal currents, how nutrients transported from one place to another, and how it eventually reshapes the ecosystem at very localized coasts.
Thank you. And that's, I think, is really important because in all examples you gave, and now yours in climate resilience, sometimes we are looking what happens at our local region. We are discussing so much about the resilience in our communities, but we need to understand that in the frame, in this global frame, and sometimes where the drivers that are bringing that and making different sea level rises at regional scales, probably for us as AAORIA, that will be important. And I will add here also as a researcher, the other line that I had highlighted, that was just the panel before, that is the ocean literacy. We need the society understanding these links. If sometimes it's already difficult to understanding our connection with the ocean, how can I understand the connection with the polar regions? But the influences are here. We are here in Salvador. This is the northwest coast of Brazil. And yesterday I was talking with the Uber driver, and I asked him how was the strength of the waves by the coast, and he was saying, it's usually normal, but sometimes when we get cold, it's stronger. That means, in scientific words, that the cold fronts that come from Antarctica, when they are strong, they can reach this coast as well. And when they reach here, they change the local dynamic circulation. So, and that happens in our country. All the economy is dependent on the cold fronts that come from Antarctica and this regulation of water cycle and so on. One learning that I have been in the first 2 years of my project in the Antarctic program, Brazilian Antarctic program, is that seems like, initial data, that it's easier for people to understand the connection when we come talking about Antarctica than with the ocean. At least with the media. For now, I'm having more, it's been easier for me to bring news from Antarctica, particularly with images like I was shown at the beginning, than when we try to bring a topic from the ocean. So that's really interesting. There is there is the mind of being the polar regions and the bears and the penguins, and they like to talk about it. And the schools like to talk about it. So maybe that many of the topics you want to address, because we want to address the ocean topics, maybe if you start from the linkage with the polar seas, we can find a pathway there. That is what actually we're even testing now in the project on communication we have. So those things are all linked. But respecting the time, I would move now that we know your research and you explore those links. In this discussion for this forum, what can we really consider as next steps of the linkages between polar seas and Atlantic? Are there research gaps? Are collaborations that as AAORIA we can strengthen and make those linkages stronger and easier. So I'd like your perspective for looking ahead for the future, please. Can we start with you, Karen?
Thank you. I think looking forward is very important, and I brought with me this slide that I wanted to have your attention about. I liked what you said about the scenarios, and there's a new initiative in Norway called, in English, the Arctic Ocean 2050, and we are planning to use 1 billion Norwegian kroner. That's about a half, 500 million then in real, I think. Because what you see here is the scenario for the Arctic. And what runs through everything in this description of this is ecosystem approach, very important. Do the research, and I think it connects very well with the AAORIA of sharing information, be as transparent as you can, and just study this complexity, because this is happening. Somebody might say it's just a scenario. That's what we hear a lot, but this is coming, and I'm very pleased that we have this commitment to actually study the polar ocean in the future. And I just very quickly had the last slide also addressing the Antarctic, because they have some very good thoughts about how to move forward. And it's very much about the trust building and the sequencing option and building trust through transparency, like I said. They're working with the MPAs there versus the fisheries management. And I think it's very important that we hold on to that AAORIA thought about transparency and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Emmanuel?
Yeah, thank you. It's quite glaring now to see that, that when we talk about the ocean, it's not disconnected. And indeed, when you did talk about the ocean circulation, and just like you did talk about the fingerprint of EMOC being responsible for sea level rise around the US East Coast, and you see a decline. So the impact of climate change on ocean circulation has both global and regional implications. Then having said this, it therefore becomes necessary that researchers shouldn't be independent. Just say, for instance, I'm an ocean climate scientist, so I shouldn't just say, okay, what I'm quite interested in is this. So there needs to be a collaboration. So, and and when we look at the feedbacks, so I would like to talk about some feedbacks that are critical to note as a result of this present discussion. There's the ice albedo feedback, which as Arctic ice melts, so we see less sunlight and accelerating warming. We also have the EMOC freshwater input, I think which is responsible for sea level rise, and we also have the ocean carbon feedback. So, and what that simply means is that warmer ocean absorbs less CO2, and the implication of that, and reducing the ocean ability to serve as a buffer to climate change. So, one of the roles that ocean circulation does is that it helps to regulate, to keep the system going. It regulates the Earth's weather. And then as regards the areas that could actually be of more priorities. So, it's of public observation that the Atlantic is well represented in terms of observation gathering, thanks to the effort being undertaken by the RAPID group in NOC. But, regions in the Southern Ocean has less data set. So, and it's quite critical. Like when you look at the Brazilian currents, it plays a prominent role in keeping the global conveyor belts going. And it also brings in the warmer oceans towards the Southern Atlantic. So what that simply means is that there's high need for funding around data observation data in the Southern Atlantic. I haven't said that. I would also like to say that it's quite necessary for us to have an ongoing collaboration effort And that comes to play like the role of summer schools, whereby we have ECOPs coming together, then having the LCOP serving as a bridge of knowledge. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Gaziza, what are your suggestions as the ECOP?
Yeah, has a role to play that in that and effective collaborations.
Thank you. And Gaziza?
Yeah, I will try to be short, brief. This is my first time participating in AAORIA, and I'm really amazed and impressed how the program includes very different backgrounds, very different disciplines, and broad audience from different parts of the world. But as a scientist, I think we tend to do our science in a very separated disciplines. We separate coastal ocean from polar seas and open ocean. However, this is all the same system. These are all interconnected. And for the future, as a next steps, I would be very much looking forward to a more system thinking, a holistic perspective where all these are just components of the same system, not different parts that should be studied separately and then brought together. So that would be my opinion. Thank you.
Amazing thinking, Aziza, and I truly agree with the three of you. We live in a world that is all connected, and we need to address our challenges based on this connection at the global level to try to find the local solutions. Is this easy? Not, but we make it through collaboration, through research, through partnership, through the science decision-making. And I guess AAORIA is this platform where we can strengthen this, and as Atlantic even given the example that can be used to the world as well. That said, I would like to be grateful to our researchers that dedicate their time and share their knowledge. So thanks, Karen, Emmanuel, and Gaziza. Thanks to the AAORIA organization, event organization, OKEANO, for the opportunity of these discussions. And we move back to the main event. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to our panelists for this insightful section, expanding our perspective on the connections between the Atlantic and the polar regions and reinforcing there's our ocean, just one ocean. We'll now break for lunch. Please enjoy your meal, and we kindly ask you to return with the punctuality of a ship docking at the port. So we see each other at 2 p.m. Thank you and see you soon.